Welcome to Soccer Morning on NASN. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Jason Davis here with you, Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, soccermorning.com, where you can go and support our program. We are listener-supported. If you help us out, we can keep going. We've got things in the works for the World Cup. And speaking of the World Cup, today is one of those days, those landmarks on the way to the World Cup that we're looking forward to. The U.S. men's national team 30-man roster, because Jurgen Klinsmann is all about competition. That'll come out today. England's roster is out today. Good timing, too, because we have Luke Moore from the Football Ramble on the show a little later. We'll talk to him about the England roster, in addition to a Premier League recap of the season we just completed. Manchester City lifting the trophy on Sunday as Premier League champions, the second time in 3 years. The building of a thing. I don't know. Every time I saw Vincent Kompany interviewed in the aftermath of City's win, it was lots of talk about building something at City. Yeah, when you throw a lot of cash at something, you can kind of sort of jump ahead. Get all the way to the end. Let's go win a couple of titles, and then we'll build something. Most teams have to go through it a little different way. I don't know, we'll build slowly. Oh, look, we're 10th, we're 5th. Oh, look, we're challenging for Champions League. Now a title. Sort of how Liverpool did it. Although Liverpool obviously has some history there. City kind of building this all from scratch. But congratulations to City and all of their fans. And I'm sure there's millions of them in the United States. Maybe there weren't yesterday, but I'm positive there are today. Congratulations to all of you. We've got a big MLS weekend to talk about as well. A couple of teams dropping 5 spots yesterday. Both of those games yesterday. No, the Chicago-New York game was Saturday. 2 teams dropping 5 spots over the weekend. Charlie Boehm from MLSsoccer.com, Soccer Wire. U.S. soccer players will join us in a couple of minutes to go through all of the MLS results. Obviously, we have to wait on Klinsmann to drop his roster later on this afternoon. And somehow, because this is a world in which media drives everything in this very meta sort of way. Despite the fact the U.S. 30-man roster is coming out today, that's not really going to be the biggest story in U.S. soccer circles. The biggest story is going to be MLS, U.S. Soccer, signing a new television deal with ESPN, Fox, and Univision, set to be announced at 1 o'clock Eastern today in New York City. Details are leaking out. Sports Business Journal's got some of them. John Tannenwald's got some of them. AwfulAnnouncing.com has some of them. And they sort of all come together to reveal that MLS is getting more than they're worth. I mean, that's the bottom line for me. Total amount, total cost, total payment to MLS for these rights between those 3 networks, $90 million. $75 million between ESPN and Fox, $15 million from Univision. That's not big-time money in sports circles. Clearly, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball do better. But for MLS, this is sort of a seminal moment. This is a big-time step forward. Remember, we talked to John Tannenwald last week about this coming up, and I referenced MLS paying for time, buying time on national networks to get their product in front of people's eyes, to try to chip away to get some fans on board. Maybe not chip away at those traditional sports, because, again, my thing is you can fold soccer into your other sports, you'll be fine. Squeeze a little bit of time out for soccer, you'll be great. But they used to have to pay for time, and now here they are, less than a decade later, $90 million. Now, again, not a lot of money, but it is significant for MLS, and it does come just before not only a World Cup, and by the way, this is an 8-year deal at $90 million per. So $270 million, is that right? So this not only comes just before a World Cup, it also comes just before new CBA negotiations. And I think that's the next step. For anybody who is watching this league from a big picture perspective, our next question isn't, well, what does this mean for television, soccer, and say, people going to watch, and what are the ratings going to do? I mean, that stuff matters. But when we're talking about the next step for MLS, we look at the CBA negotiations. We wonder what this means from the players. The players walk into that room and go, you just got 90 mil a season. Where's ours? We got to get ours. We want this, this, and this. And the owners say, yeah, we got 90 mil, but we dumped a ton of money down the drain 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and we're still not making money in this place, in this place, in this place, and our TV ratings are still tiny, and et cetera, et cetera. No, you're not getting anything. That's the worst case scenario. That's what we're all afraid of, right? And who blinks first? Lockout, strike, whatever. I mean, I don't want to bum anybody out, but we're going to have to deal with this eventually. For the time being, this is interesting stuff. $90 million, ESPN, Fox. And by the way, details of this, because people are curious and wondering, as far as I know, Fox Sports 1 is going to be the home of MLS on Fox and not Fox Sports 2 and et cetera. Now, the other thing that people are worried about, the other detail that came out today, is that this likely means the end of MLS Live. If you are and Direct Kick, by the way. So if you are a subscriber to either the online streaming package, that's mine. That's my way of getting MLS. That's how I watch all the games. I have MLS Live. If you're one of those people, the games are all going to move over to ESPN3 because apparently digital rights were a major part of this package. And I know people are upset, specifically the cord cutters out there. If you're a cord cutter, sorry, $720 million. Whatever. No, what? I don't know what I said. Doug, throwing me off with tweets. If you're a cord cutter, whatever total I said is probably wrong. Regardless, $90 million. If you're a cord cutter, you watch MLS through MLS Live, then you're kind of out of luck here. Because ESPN3 typically requires a cable subscription. Now, Jonathan Tannenwald on Twitter, the goalkeeper, and go follow him if you want to keep on top of all the details here. It's already reported that some sources have said that there may be a subscription package to MLS through ESPN3. So if you are a cord cutter and you have MLS Live, and that's how you watch the league, and you don't want to go get a cable subscription in order to get ESPN3 so you can watch those out-of-market games, those nationally televised games, then maybe you can buy a subscription. The other detail here is another thing that we've been talking about, a theme for this league for a while when it comes to television, and that's exclusive set broadcast windows. When is the game going to be on? I don't know. I don't know. When is the game going to be on? I don't know. When is the NBC game this week? I don't know. When's the ESPN game this week? I don't know. This contract, this package, puts a game on Friday night on Univision. By the way, a story I read said SAP function available for English speakers. That's nice. That means you're not shut out of watching the game with an English commentary if you want to do that. Also, Sunday night, doubleheader, ESPN and Fox. I don't remember who was first, but a doubleheader on Sunday night, ESPN and Fox. Locked in. Boom. There you go. Now, Sunday night, the best spot? I don't know. I mean, it's your schedule, how you feel about it. It's going to conflict with Game of Thrones. I don't. And Silicon Valley and Mad Men and whatever else is on Sunday nights. What else is on Sunday nights? Every television show in the world. So maybe that's a concern for you. But at least it's locked in. At least you know where it's going to be. Where's the game? Oh, Sunday night. Friday night. So that's a good step. Boston Red, good point, actually. ESPN3 does not require a cable subscription. It's tied to your ISP. Okay, well, yeah, but your ISP has to be... Okay, whatever. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will grab Charlie Boehm. We'll go through the MLS results from the weekend. Maybe we'll ask him his opinion on the new television deal. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, soccermorning.com. How's your soccer? Be right back.
Flashcards. Intergalactic, planetary, planetary, intergalactic, intergalactic.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Back on Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, YouTube.com/NASN TV. Charlie Boehm's on the line with me now. Hi, Charlie.
Hello, Jason.
Charlie's from U.S. Soccer Players, SoccerWire.com, MLS Soccer, blah, 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 all over the place. CBOEHM on Twitter. Charlie's here to talk MLS, as we do. It was a crazy weekend. If it wasn't for all this other news, Charlie, the results from this particular MLS weekend might be leading, maybe the lead story, but as it is, there's other things kind of trumping. And we had 2 5-goal performances, a bunch of hat tricks. What accounts for the craziness?
Goals. That's a great question. I don't think there's an easy answer for it. You had some teams that were well prepared for matches. You had some teams that were feeling tired legs from Wednesday midweek games. And but the most shocking part to me was the fact that road teams went 6-1-2. 6-2-1, excuse me, this weekend, which is, given the traditional sort of patterns of MLS results in regular season, that is downright bizarre.
I don't know if I said 2 teams scored 5 goals. I meant 3 teams scored 5 goals. I might have shorted somebody. We had Chicago beating New York 5-4 in the craziest game of the year so far. New England with a 5-spot blanking Seattle, and that's maybe the shock result of the weekend. We'll get to that. And RSL 5-2 over Houston. I guess if we're going to talk about goals, I don't know. Let's talk about Chicago and New York. This is the Fire's first win of the year, right? So they're the last team to get off of that list, that terrible list. But it's got to be crushing for New York to give up 5 the way that they did.
Yeah, they remain a real mystery of a team. There's days when they look like they are, the MLS Cup favorites. And then there's days like on Saturday when you really just don't know who you're watching. Do give them credit for scoring a few goals themselves. Both teams had hat tricks. Bradley Wright Phillips continues to be probably the hottest striker in MLS right now. Thierry Henry continues to create lots of chances, but that even after some offseason upgrades, that defense continues to let them down. And now we have a new set of questions about Armando, the Spanish center back, who was supposedly brought in there to offer some veteran experience and leadership and physicality, and had been very good, although he's had some disciplinary problems. He'd been very good this season, and he and his backline teammates were not so good this time around.
It's odd to complain about the officiating when you give up 5, but that first Chicago goal, I'm not sure what happened there. I don't understand how that's not off. I know McGee didn't play the ball, but he's certainly involved in the play as a distraction for Robles.
One of at least 2, definitely 2 influential decisions by referees and their ARs this weekend regarding the passive offsides rule, which continues to be just kind of a nightmare for all of us in the game, from referees to fans to players to observers. I don't see how, there's different ways to look at in different scenarios in which the passive offside rule can be discussed and enforced. But in the case of both the DC United Philly game and the Red Bulls Chicago game, you had the decisive goals that were created, essentially, in my opinion, were made possible by goalkeepers being passively interfered with by opposing players right in the goal mouth, and the referees decided otherwise. The one in New York was particularly strange because the linesman raised his flag at Mike McGee's apparent involvement in the play. Kind of then dropped it a bit, hesitated, looked at his center ref, and ran back to the halfway line. So clearly there's someone lost their medal there, or there was some conversation that happened between the referees via their radio system that we'll never know about. But there was I thought, a real bad call there, and it looked like Mike Petke was going to just lose his mind both on the sidelines and after the game, and understandably so. That goal should not have counted. Harrison Shipp's opener.
Harrison Shipp was the star of the show for the Fire, and this is a player. A lot of people that I respect have been talking about him coming into the year, and that he's potentially a Rookie of the Year guy that we should be looking out for, because this does seem to be a year without an obvious Rookie of the Year candidate. Is he going to just take the lead, and we expect him to be able to be consistent enough to be the guy when we finish up this season?
It's hard to call this in May. It's even hard to call it in July because rookies often will hit the wall, especially the ones who've come out of the college system. And encounter certain, I'll just call them psycho and physiological
right.
walls they hit, the rookie wall, in terms of, when the MLS season runs well past the length of the seasons they're used to in the NCAA season, then they tend to struggle a bit. But so far, Shipp is the clear frontrunner. I would have put Tommy McNamara, Chivas USA's very intriguing and talented player, high up in this list, but he did his ACL a few weeks ago and is out for the year. Another one to look at who hasn't been doing much late yet, but may make a run, is Tesho Akindele, who is a very intriguing kid from Colorado, out of the Colorado School of Mines, who turned some heads just by that factor. One of the smallest programs, I think, is a D2 program, and one of the few D2 kids to get drafted this year. And he started for FC Dallas, I believe, over the weekend and looked like he fit in. And so I think he may get more opportunities. So that's another one to watch. But, so far it seems that the influence of rookies, not necessarily young players, but certainly the influence of super draft rookies has been muted a bit. Whether you want to attribute that to the growing depth of the league or, foreign acquisitions and, young players coming in through other means, there's a lot of conversation to be had there. But certainly Shipp is head and shoulders above his colleagues at the moment.
Shipp is not, as you said, not necessarily a young player. 22 is the year that is the age that college kids tend to enter the league, at least historically. But he's also a homegrown signing from the Fire who went to Notre Dame. One of those sort of half and half stories. But he is certainly one to watch based on what he did this weekend. I guess then. Let me ask this and sort of we'll get to Seattle and New England because I specifically want to talk about that game. But when you look at the teams that gave up that many goals on the weekend, Houston, Seattle, and the Red Bulls, is it indicative of some fundamental problems for any of them? Was it just an odd weekend? Obviously, Seattle across the country, Houston giving up those goals at home is bad, and the same for New York.
Yeah, once again, I think with New York, I just don't know what to expect from those guys. So maybe you can write that off as a one-off. But for me, the Houston result is the most troubling. I believe that's RSL's first ever victory in Houston, and even on a short week, with a Wednesday game against Columbus, I believe it was. The Dynamo aren't supposed to give up 5 goals in a game at home. It's just not who they are. It's not in their DNA. So it's worth wondering whether we're watching something deeper going on with that team and their back line, or whether Dom Kinnear is going to still be able to pull out his late season resurrection act, which has become such an annual tradition in MLS. But certainly he's got some questions to answer, and if he loses Brad Davis for a while for national team duty, as we've discussed before, it gets worse for them. So I don't know. That result was one that really raised my eyebrows. With the Seattle match, I think they laid an egg for sure. They were, but the Revolution are a very good team that are sort of chronically underrated because of a number of factors. And they've been, struggling to really sort of make everything click attacking wise. It looks like Patrick Mullins, who's another rookie I should have mentioned, who's going to probably make a run up the sort of rookie power rankings, has been really decisive there and coming in and becoming a true target player, a lone striker who really does what the Revolution need from that position. Very impressive player. I really like Mullins, both as for his abilities, but his intelligence, his soccer IQ, and he's brought great things to that team. So I'm willing to give them more credit than I am to impugn the Sounders on that one. So and New York, don't bet on New York. I'll just put it that way.
Well, again, we sort of go through this stretch where the Sounders are the best team in the league, and I know that they fell behind a bunch of times and came back, but they showed some resolve, and Chad Marshall had some dominating performances, and again, cross country, the schedule is packed. Playing on that turf in that environment, I imagine it's a difficult ask, but you expect one of the best teams in the league to at least be competitive. And certainly, based on the scoreline, they weren't competitive. Now, about the Revs, and a lot of people high on the Revs were a little concerned at the beginning with their start, but they've started to turn it around here. Teal Bunbury being shifted out of that target striker role, which he apparently isn't suited for, and pushed out wide. Is he the guy that suffers when Kellen Rowe is healthy, or how is that going to work?
It's a great question. I don't know. Rowe has a tough task. I see him as a central player. So and with Lee Wen playing extremely well right now, one of the best players in the league at the moment. It's tough to see him getting dislodged. Andy Dorman has brought a lot to that kind of lone anchor midfield role. So I think we're going to see Rowe competing with Daigo Kobayashi for minutes in there, and this is a time of year when they can probably both share playing time, and things will get a little more busy for them when the Open Cup kicks in and that sort of thing. So Rowe, it's just a good problem for Jay Heaps to have. I think we're going to wind up seeing him as a regular for them, but he had a really tough start to the year with problems in both hamstrings. So expect them to treat him with caution as they sort of work him back up to maximum match fitness.
No, clearly they can afford to right now. This is a three-game winning streak in which they've beaten Sporting, Toronto, and now the Seattle Sounders, and done so emphatically. It clearly looks like the Revs push to the playoffs is back on track. Looking around the rest of these results and talking about FC Dallas, and you mentioned Akindele and potentially getting some time. The worry there is how can you stand out on a team that's struggling so poorly or struggling so badly, and wondering if FC Dallas is hitting the swoon we saw last year. Maybe this is even a little earlier than last year. I think it's significantly earlier than last year. And Mauro Diaz being out is obviously a big blow. 4 losses in a row for FC Dallas. Now that they've lost to San Jose on the weekend, are they? Is this a lost cause now? Is Diaz that important? Is there any way back for FC Dallas?
Oh, I think there is for sure. And it's interesting parallels to last season when they really fell off in summertime. Maybe they're encountering and confronting some of their issues sooner, and maybe that's better for them. But the fact remains, Mauro Diaz is a quality player who's going to be out for a couple months, and they don't have a purpose-built natural replacement for him, nor would you expect them to, given his quality and his status as a young designated player. Mm-hmm. So they do have some things to answer, and I think you have to. I think Oscar Pareja, as their coach, has got the necessary sort of outlook to deal with it. The question is, what's he going to do, though? Is he going to change the tactics fundamentally, or maybe change the format, the system that they're playing? We'll have to wait and see. But it's also a factor of a very, very strong Western Conference that's probably going to reach out and pull down the front runners on multiple occasions this year, because between scheduling and the challenges that come along with Western interconference games, I think it's going to happen over and over.
This weekend as well. The 2 games that I was able to catch some of on Saturday. My son's 6-year-old sixth birthday party was Saturday, so I was a little distracted. But I managed to sort of 2-screen Philadelphia and DC and Montreal, Kansas City. And the thing I said and that struck me watching both of those games is just how bad both home teams looked. Montreal, maybe the worst team in MLS. I don't know what the future is. Joey Saputo tweeting out the changes are coming. Philadelphia just looked anemic against DC. What's which one for you is worse right now? I hate to say it that way, but they just looked poor.
Yeah, well, I think back to the first couple of games where Philly went out to Portland and played really well and got a good result, almost got a great result, and surrendered an equalizer late on, if I remember right. There was a lot of promise to Philly. I think there's a little bit of accumulation of frustration and poor, lack of confidence going on there, and with Philly, there's sort of a unique and Amobi Okugo, who's their center back and really thoughtful, intelligent guy, and I think he got a little flack for saying that, hey, this is Philly, we expect booing, because there were boos, there were fire Hackworth chants, and there's a rumor going on around right now that Hackworth is going to be relieved of his duties as early as today. I don't have any sort of substantive reason to know for certain that's going to happen, but that gives you a kind of an idea of what's the backdrop there. And Okugo said, we expect that. This is Philly. This is a tough sports town. When things aren't going well, we know the fans are going to express themselves. And he got some flack for that, but I think he's absolutely right. We can all point to other examples in other sports of where Philly fans get really, really frustrated with teams that are playing poorly, that aren't getting the results they should, and so that sort of tends to hang over things. Just the same way that the intensity of feelings in Cascadia can change the dynamics or at least influence them. So I think Philadelphia is definitely a better team. I think they still have an opportunity to rally and get themselves back into the picture here, but they just don't have a cutting edge when they do well until they get into that final third, and then it's not clear who's their guy. When they had Jack McInerney, there was no question who their fox was, who was going to be the man they looked to finish. Andrew Wenger has had some good moments, but he's just clearly hasn't proved himself as an MLS finisher, and a professional level finisher. Connor Casey has not been that guy so far this year. So they need somebody to step up and get opportunistic because there's a lot of quality in the midfield. And there's there's a lot more talent on that roster, let's say, than Montreal. I mean, Montreal just looks like a mess from here. There's fundamental issues in the options that Coach Frank Klopas has. He may be sacrificed or he may not. I don't know yet, based on the frustration and Saputo's public promise of change. But I think Montreal has much deeper issues.
Absolutely,
than Philly does.
Yeah, absolutely. And you wonder if, as you say, if Klopas has to sort of be the guy that takes the brunt of the criticism, even though there are fundamental issues with that roster. Well, meanwhile, maybe this even works against John Hackworth. There's enough talent there. You should be at least competing and winning some games. And it hasn't gone well. Hasn't gone well recently for Philadelphia. All right, last minute or so here. We have to talk about Portland and LA, a game that was scoreless for 90 minutes. Yeah. Suddenly gave us 2 goals. I guess the biggest question. Well, first of all, Portland's defending on Keane's goal, an absolute disaster. And then the breakaway, Juninho, the foul. Was it a foul? Should it have been a foul? Does LA have a beef right now?
I think so. I haven't had an opportunity to fully dissect that play and break it down and look at it a dozen times or so. Certainly, the referee was in good position and decided that I think it was Juninho, right? Had flopped on what looked like it was going to be the game clincher at 1-0 to make it 2-0 or a PK. And of course, Portland went right down to the other end. But for me, the big story really is just that before we saw the Timbers creating a lot, playing well, providing the quality that we are expecting from Caleb Porter's team in terms of passing and movement and build-up. Even that was missing, in this game. I mean, the defending has always been an issue, and the back four is just not good enough for them right now. Alvis Powell did pretty well, actually, surprisingly well for a young kid coming in at right back, but Jack Jewsbury's not the answer at left back. Michael Harrington may be out for a while. Even if you believe those guys are good enough, there's going to be availability issues there with injury. But the center backs, to me, are the real problem there. They just don't have enough quality, not only in terms of the passing and vision out of the back that Porter's going to want for his system, but just basic defending, basic stability, confidence-inducing decision-making. All those things are short with Ka particularly. Footy is, has I think a little bit more going for him in my personal estimation, but they've got to bring in some center backs, and I think the target striker is an issue too. And I'm told that they're going to be announcing something as early as today for a loan move for a European-based player. So we'll see if that jumpstarts the offense. But they're going to have to outscore teams right now, the way that things are looking, and that's a tall order at the moment.
We're completely out of time here. I'd love to talk a little bit about LA as well, because not as sharp as you would expect them to be. And I know Robbie Keane gets this lucky goal. I thought Donovan was fine and involved and maybe even better than the rest of his teammates for most of that game, but it just wasn't there. All right, we're out of time. There's too much MLS to talk about. Charlie Bowman from MLSsoccer.com, U.S. Soccer Players and Soccer Wires. Thank you for your time, Charlie. I appreciate it, man.
Always a pleasure. You guys have a good one.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll grab Luke Moore from the world-famous Football Ramble. We'll talk about the Premier League. What a season. Manchester City are champions. Talk some England squad for the World Cup as well. Don't go anywhere. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, soccermorning.com.
I turn my camera on. I cut my fingers on the way.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
That goes Soccer Morning on a Monday. We have completed 2013-2014 English Premier League season. We've got an England squad as well for the World Cup, and to sort of talk about all of this because, England's exciting. Luke Moore from the Football Ramble. Hi, Luke. How are you?
How you doing? I'm all right, thanks. What's with the superstition soundtrack? What are you superstitious of?
I don't think that was really an intentional thing, but I suppose that when World Cup time comes around, everybody gets a little superstitious, right?
Yeah, well, you're not crossing yourself and touching the grass as you come on. All that sort of stuff.
I had a couple of those rituals back when I played various sporting activities. All right, Luke, the season is over. Manchester City got the job done. No surprises there on the final day to have them close it out. I guess now sort of what we talk about is whether or not they were deserving champions, and I don't think there's any argument that they were not.
No, yeah, I think realistically, it's a 38-game season. And the league table is a fair, of course, the most fair way of doing it. And Man City were, on reflection, the best team throughout the season. So, yeah, richly deserved, and there was no real surprises on the final day, despite all the media here wanting there to be. And actually, to be fair, I probably wanted there to be a few twists and turns, but there wasn't. And City did a professional job with their last two games of the season, and they knew that was going to be enough.
I guess this is their second in 3 years. That's obviously sort of a big statement for the club. We know why they're here, because they had a massive influx of money. And I heard Vincent Kompany giving several interviews after the match and after winning the title. And a lot of what he said was, about creating a spirit behind the club and building something. And it's interesting, they sort of jumped ahead. They paid all that money to jump ahead and win a title, and now they're sort of building things while they're winning titles. Does that take away from what City has accomplished in both of these titles in the last 3 seasons?
It's a difficult question, really. I mean, it seems a bit churlish for me to sort of criticise them for that. I mean, it's not the players' fault. It's not the manager's fault. I mean, they're part of a club that that work hard and work as hard as any other club to try and be successful. There are no plucky underdogs at the top end of the football realistically now. Anyway, I mean, the nearest you'll get will be, in this country will be someone like Arsenal, and it's a joke to call them sort of plucky. And they're a well-run club and they've run within their means, and that's admirable. But they're still got considerable firepower, and they've still got the ability to pay 42 million quid for a player. So I mean, the landscape we live in now in terms of football is vastly different to what it used to be, and we're all still trying to catch up with that. So you can't. I mean, I don't think you can criticise them, can you? I just think if you're going to criticise them, you're going to have to criticise football at the top end in general. And then there's no point in doing that. I think you either accept it for what it is or you don't. Yeah. And of course you can protest against it and the way the game's gone and stuff like that. But we're all complicit in it. We all support it. We all talk about it and watch it and all that other stuff. So I mean, either enjoy it or don't, I suppose.
It's a much broader philosophical question that I don't want to get into. But it's, what is the club? Is the club Mansour and the money? Is the club the players and the fans? And of course, congratulations and well done to those players. And well done.
The fans are the only thing that stay constant, aren't they?
Sure.
The club is essentially the fans and the custodians of the club at that particular time. And I think that football clubs could do a lot better for their fans. Of course I do. I think they could do a whole lot better. And they should do. And they should be pressured into doing a lot better for their fans, because fans are the most important part of the game. But it's a slightly different question, I think. And as you say, it's more a philosophical one. I'm sure you don't want to go into it.
No. Well, it brings me to Manuel Pellegrini and the job he did. And I suppose the question is, did he just not screw it up, or did he actively do something that made them, better throughout the season? Because I
think he did a good job. I think he did a really good job. I think it was a difficult dressing room. What happened with Mancini happened. Mancini fell out with a lot of players a lot of the time. He's a very sort of explosive character. Pellegrini seems to have come in and really settled the ship and steered them through sort of calmer waters. And it's not an easy job keeping those players happy. I mean, people will say, well, I could manage Barcelona or I could manage City with all their money. But it's not like that at all. There are different disciplines when you manage at different levels. So obviously if you manage at a lower level, maybe your greatest skill will be to get the best out of your players and give them belief, encouragement and confidence and stuff. The top players probably have got all that already. So the important thing is maybe to manage personalities and keep everyone happy and let everyone feel part of the squad when not necessarily everyone's going to play all the time. There are a lot of different disciplines involved, and some managers are better at aspects of it than others are. And Pellegrini was exactly what was needed, and he's proven that. And for him to come to have his first season in England and win the title is a great achievement, regardless of a weak United or a sort of influx Chelsea and Arsenal doing their usual thing. He's had to fight off a challenge from Liverpool. I mean, they went to Liverpool and got beat, so he had to lift them again, and he's done that, and I think he deserves immense amount of credit for it.
Speaking of Liverpool, they're obviously rude the chance to win this title that they missed, that the points that they dropped, especially against Crystal Palace, and the way that this ended. But in sort of in a fair appreciation of their season, it was an amazing season for Liverpool. And Brendan Rodgers, whether Pellegrini did a great job or not, we're certain that Rodgers did a fantastic job.
He did, yeah, did an excellent job. He was helped by not having European football and only having to compete on one major front, and that will change next season. It'll be great to see what he can do. He's signed a new contract now, so he's obviously committed. The thing I like about what Rodgers does at Liverpool is it seems to be that everything he does has a reason behind it. There seems to be a plan, a coherent strategy in place. And it'll be great to see who he signs in the summer. It'll be very interesting to see what players they keep hold of and whether they're all truly bought into the project and the aesthetic of the team and the club. And of course, he deserves an immense amount of credit as well. I mean, they were top of the table going into the last game of the season. Now, in context is everything in football, and of course, they knew they realistically weren't going to do the business. But they still did well, and it was second place. I mean, they had a bit in your hand off, and to be. Sorry, they were top 2 games to go, weren't they? Right. To be that, I think, is an amazing achievement, given they came 7th last year, and Rodgers is still really learning his trade at the very top level, and he's a young manager.
I guess the question now for Liverpool is not only how do they fix the problems they have defensively in shipping so many goals, because that's essentially why they lost the title, the number of goals they gave up, but also whether or not they can count on the same sort of production from Luis Suarez and Daniel Sturridge that they got this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were going to be ultra critical, you would question how Rodgers purchases defensive players. But he's still got, he's still relatively young as a manager, and he's not been at Liverpool for a long time. So he's got plenty of opportunity to put that right. And on one hand, you could say maybe they relied on Suarez and Sturridge's goals too much. But I mean, they're your strikers. That's what they're there for. You know, of course, you'd like to see players contributing more from midfield and all that other nonsense, but that's what they're paid to do. You know, you wouldn't necessarily say, oh, the only reason that Liverpool don't concede any goals is because their centre backs are so good. That's their job. That's what they do. So they need to improve that part of the team. They need to keep Suarez and Sturridge happy, which I think they can do. It's definitely with Sturridge. Suarez may be a little bit harder, but they're in the Champions League now, and that's what Suarez wanted. He might not be able to turn down a massive offer if Real Madrid came in, perhaps, but there's no definite that's going to happen. So it'll be great to see what goes on, and they've had a successful season by any standards, and of course the way they sort of relinquished the title that seemed to be in their grasp quite late on is unfortunate and upsetting for them, but they've got to bounce back, and they've got a whole summer to sort themselves out, and it'll be great to see what they do next year.
Luis Suarez, your player of the year? Who's your player of the year?
You'd have to. It's difficult because there's different players in different positions, of course, but I think Suarez has been the standout player in terms of ability and application and all that sort of stuff. I mean, he scored so many goals, and he missed first part of the season as well. He's head and shoulders really in terms of attacking players and consistency and stuff. I think there's been a great amount of outstanding players and sort of consistent performers this season. I think John Terry's been very good at the back for Chelsea. I think it's crazy that there's talk of him not sticking around. I think he's been one of the standout players in the Premier League this season. I think Millie Jedinak at Crystal Palace had a great season in midfield. An unfancied, sort of not really rated player coming into this season. One question marks about whether he could cut it at Premier League level, and I think he's been one of the best midfield players in the league. So there's been standout performances all over the place, really.
Yeah, so I'll throw Yaya Toure. I'm just in the bag for Yaya Toure.
Oh, right, of course.
I just can't. Love that guy. The rest of the table sort of settling out. I mean, we really didn't have any other surprises, as you said on the last day. We knew Norwich was going down, even if it wasn't mathematically done until their loss to Arsenal. But there they go: Norwich, Fulham, Cardiff. Over the course of the season, as you said, the table doesn't lie. Those are the three worst teams, and we've sort of done our post-mortem on Fulham. Norwich didn't do enough, and certainly turnover at the managerial position, and it just didn't work for them.
No, they've spent a lot of money in the summer, and I think it's particularly disappointing for Norwich fans because I imagine a few of them would have had real high hopes for this season. They did okay last year, and they strengthened and spent quite a bit of money. And the signings they made just didn't work out. And I think it might well be that Chris Hughton wasn't strong enough, really. And whilst people, when Hughton was fired, and a lot of the media was saying, managers don't get a chance these days, blah, blah, blah. A lot of the Norwich fans were actually saying, well, this has come too late for us.
Right. And
this should have happened ages ago because he wasn't getting the results and he wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing. The players weren't performing. We need a new manager to freshen it up. And it's come too late. And obviously it had come too late. They had a very difficult last 4 games of the season, and they went into those 4 games with an inexperienced manager at Premier League level. And, at best, that's a massive gamble. And at worst, it's just suicidal, and so it proved to be.
It was a very interesting season, and again, didn't end up giving us the intrigue on the last day, but at the same time, we had Liverpool contending, which maybe we didn't see coming into the year. It was one of those sort of different enough Premier League seasons that it gave you something to kind of hang on to throughout the course of the year. I've only got you for a couple more minutes, Luke, so I got to ask about the England squad. Released today, Roy Hodgson picks his 23-man roster. Any surprises for you? Where's the biggest omission?
Not too many surprises. I mean, it's great to see so many young players picked. I'm worried about England at the back. I think we have a sort of paucity of options, really, of genuine quality at centre back and right back, I think. But we just need to, I mean, especially the type of football that Roy Hodgson likes to play, which tends to be quite cautious, tends to be quite sort of, let's not give too much away, well-drilled type football. I don't know if the players he's got at his disposal will seriously fit into that well. But I like that we've got some good young attacking players featured. I mean, I like that Arana's in there. I like that Barkley's in there. I like that Sterling's in there. I'm particularly, delighted for Luke Shaw, who's had a really good season. And the reason I'm delighted for him being included is because it's very easy for an international manager to leave out young players because he can just say, well, they've been great, but it's come too soon for them. And no one really questions it because they're so young. but he's actually taken a gamble and gone with Luke Shaw over Ashley Cole. And I didn't think he would do that. I didn't think he'd want to go into a tournament with two relatively inexperienced left backs. Because although Baines isn't that young, he's not had that many caps. So he has gambled here and there. I think England may do a bit better than everyone thinks they'll do this summer. I think they might get through the group, and if they do get through the group, they should have a winnable second round game. So it'll be interesting again to see what happens. I know I keep saying it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I am genuinely interested in football, and that's why.
Well, I'm looking at their schedule for the World Cup, and is it bad that they have the weakest team in the group, Costa Rica, in the last game, or is that that's an opportunity to maybe pick up the points they need to get through?
No, I think it's worked out okay, because if you had to play Italy, who are a good team, you would play them first, because they're traditionally, it's a bit of a cliche, but it is true if you check it out. They do tend to start quite slowly and grow into a competition. So I'd rather play them very first game, because you never know what you're going to get, and if we're drilled enough and we work hard and really get our stuff together, then we might better get one over on Italy. Uruguay again, they're a good team, but they're not infallible, and they qualified reasonably poorly. They're certainly not the team they were 4 years ago. So again, that's you could get a point or a win out of that. And then if you go into the last game needing to beat Costa Rica, I think you'd probably take that at this level. I mean, it's the World Cup. You've got to pick some good teams if you want to make an impression on it.
You talk about the youth in this squad. I guess the real question then is, call them up. That's fine. That's great, and have them with you. But will Hodgson use them? Will he trust them enough? I mean, are we going to see Gerrard and Lampard in the midfield again? I mean, that's...
well, I don't think Lampard will start. I think that ship has sailed now, really. I think. I certainly hope it has anyway. I think it's a case of, in an ideal world, you have a settled back four, okay, and a settled keeper, potentially with the exception of one or two of the full-backs, depending on who they're up against. But you certainly don't want to be changing around your centre-backs and your goalkeeper, in my view. And then I suppose you adjust accordingly, and it depends whether Hodgson wants to go 4-2-3-1, as he's done a fair bit, or if he wants to go 4-3-3. I don't know what's on his mind, really. I think he'll work it out a lot in the friendly games they've got, and the warm-up games, and in training sessions and things like that. The managers at international level don't get an awful lot of time with their players, so they can sort of be forgiven for being a little bit cautious here and there. Sure. I don't know what he's going to do. I can't second guess him. I don't know what formation he's going to play or the game they're going to start, the team they're going to start with against Italy. I'm reasonably happy with the squad overall, and you've got to make some quite controversial decisions for a couple of reasons. One, because you can only take a certain amount of players, and two, because England haven't got that many great players. There's not a huge amount of options.
But at the same time, you're cautiously optimistic, which I like.
I'd like to be. I don't want to be negative about it. No. I really like the World Cup, and I really want to see England do well. And of course, I can joke about it and be cynical about it and stuff, but I think they've got a reasonable chance of maybe getting to the quarter-final. How about that?
Wow, that's good. I like that. You're on the record now. What's fun is going into this tournament, if you have a rooting interest. I mean, you're England, I have the United States. What's the fun if you just assume they're going to fall flat? That completely ruins the tournament before it even starts. And the United States has very little chance of getting through the group, Luke, but I'm going to say that they have a chance because I don't like the alternative.
Yeah, and also you're in there, you're in the hat, so you got to be in it to win it and all that other stuff. So you qualified and you made it in there, and you might make an impression on it. You never know. There's always a team or two that do better than people think.
And that's why we love the World
Cup. Here's an England-USA final, right?
There you go. I love that. Luke Moore from the World Cup.
I'm not even sure that can happen.
Yeah, maybe not. I have to go look at everything, how it breaks out. Luke Moore joining us, talk Premier League and England's World Cup team. Thank you very much for your time, Luke.
Pleasure.
All right.
Thanks,
there you go.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
There's Luke. Appreciate his time as always. Fantastic stuff on anything English, because he is English. See how that works out? He's English. He talks about England. Yeah, that's nice. I mean, we could talk about England without an English person on this show. I don't know that makes a difference, but we have a resource in Luke. And and he brings something very good to the table. All right. Phone lines are open, 347-756-6276. The rest of the show belongs to you. We can talk about this MLS TV deal. $90 million a year for 8 years for the United States, or for U.S. Soccer, MLS, to have their games broadcast across ESPN, Fox, and Univision. And if you're wondering about the U.S. Soccer aspects of this is a shift here. There is a split happening when it comes to qualifiers and U.S. men's national team games between ESPN and Fox. And they will trade off, apparently. I don't know what the schedule will be like. We'll have to see how that works out come 2015. But for the time being, what we know is that the deal involves a split of that, because rarely did we get an NBC U.S. national team game. How many qualifiers did we get on NBC? Any? I think ESPN had all the qualifiers, right? All the home qualifiers, because obviously you can't get the away rights because those belong to the home federation, who then sells them to Traffic Sports, who then blah, blah, blah. Vince in Toronto, what's up?
Oh, hey, Jason.
Oh, hey, Vince. What's up, man?
Hey, I wanted to ask you a question. I wanted to get your opinion on something. So after, Seattle learned a very good lesson against New England, there was something that a couple of people brought up that I was interested in, and I was thinking about. I wanted to get your perspective on this. A lot of people are in love with DeAndre Yedlin, despite the fact that he's still learning.
Right.
Dempsey's Dempsey. People have been saying as well, Chad Marshall maybe should get into the U.S. squad. I don't agree with that.
No, I think that ship has sailed.
And then Brad Evans is Brad Evans, and Alexi Lalas loves them, but not everybody else does. I want to know, do you believe that Klinsmann has kind of done a disservice and overlooked the New England Revolution for talent? Because Lee Nguyen, Kellen Rowe, Andrew Farrell, who a lot of people have said is better than DeAndre Yedlin, and is a guy who can play right back and center back. And Juan Agudelo, when he was doing well with the New England Revolution, he wasn't necessarily getting those call-ups. And then you got one for the future probably, and maybe in Patrick Mullins. Do you believe that Klinsmann maybe hasn't given them a fair shake to see what they could do in a U.S. camp?
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything that Klinsmann has against the Revolution, but if you look at the talent across the Revolution roster and the American talent specifically, and really I'm trying to think now, how many teams in this league have anywhere close to the amount of American talent as the New England Revolution? It certainly seems like he has overlooked them. I don't know that he's done them a disservice or he has anything against them, which you may or may not be implying, but he certainly has overlooked those guys. And we have to consider them individually. I mean, I know they're all on the same team, but you can't say, well, he's overlooking the Revolution. What you're saying is he's overlooking Farrell specifically, who is also a player learning. He's in his second professional season. Let's not forget that. But when Kellen Rowe in his, I don't know, is this a third year in the league? Kellen Rowe, obviously injured right now, so he's not a factor. I already mentioned Lee Nguyen. Lee Nguyen is a player who sort of came in and out, dipped his toe in the national team water, and has been out for a while. And I think his career path plays against him a lot. And I really don't know what it's going to take at the MLS level for him to get back in the picture. He's playing in a spot that features a lot of talent already. That's part of the problem there.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I know Klinsmann loves his European players, and I believe Lee Nguyen is a product of PSV's youth academy.
Right, but here's the thing: if Benny Feilhaber's on the outside looking in, and maybe Lee Nguyen's playing better than Benny Feilhaber for you, I don't know. But if Benny Feilhaber's on the outside looking in, then Lee Nguyen's not going to get in. I mean, that's part of the problem.
I like Benny. I don't like when people say he hasn't been given a fair shake or whatever, simply because I believe he has over 40 U.S. caps. So it's not like the guy never had his opportunity. And Klinsmann's already seen what Benny can do. And I'm based on, the Mexico game and everything, I just don't think Klinsmann rates him that much. And I understand people like Benny Feilhaber, but he's a great player, but he doesn't necessarily light my world on fire. And especially he's almost 30. And I mean, people say maybe he should go into the mixed disc route. Mixed disc route is what, 23?
Yeah. He's
one for the future as well. But I'd really like to see Kellen Rowe get an opportunity. And, New England's they seem to be on the up. I do believe early on in the season, everybody was already writing them off. They're not the same without Agudelo. Things are going well. It's they play. Everyone always brings up Gillette Stadium and just what a terrible atmosphere it is. But they're playing very well, and I do see where you're coming from when it comes to Farrell and everyone still learning. DeAndre Yedlin has one professional season under his belt, and he's already received the cap. And I like Yedlin, but like I said, people need to ease up on him. He is 21 years old. He's not the answer to stop Ronaldo, and neither is Brad Evans for that.
Well, okay, look, there isn't. He's 20 years old until July. There isn't an answer to stop Ronaldo. I mean, let's just be honest about this and stop with this. We really want this player going. No matter who you throw out there, Cristiano Ronaldo is better and can skin easily. Okay, that's you're going to have to figure out a way to scheme an approach to Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, the only question is whether or not Brad Evans, who is a more positionally disciplined player, and certainly I think a better passer of the ball than DeAndre Yedlin, is the option that you want to go with over, again, DeAndre Yedlin, or, throw out Timmy Chandler if you honestly think he can make a comeback into this team, or Jeff Cameron if you think he's the answer. Jeff Cameron's not the speediest guy. He's obviously got some size to battle with Ronaldo if you want to go with that. I don't know. I'm just saying it's sort of a 6 in one, half dozen in the other. It doesn't really matter. Pick one and scheme around it.
I have a question for you, Jay, and this will be my last question, and then I'll leave you alone. Do you believe Brad Evans deserves to make the squad simply because of what he's done for qualifying? Because if what I think is going to happen happens and he makes the team, he's what? He can play central midfield, he can play on the right, and he can play as a right back. If he's taken as a right back, I would guess Cameron, maybe Chandler, and Parker should be ahead of him. If he's on the right, you have Bedoya and Susie ahead of him, and if you have him in the central midfield, there's like 5 guys in front of him. He's not going to see any playing time, I don't imagine. And so, what's really the point of taking him, if no other than we're just rewarding him for helping us during qualifying?
Well, I think it's pretty clear Klinsmann doesn't have any interest in rewarding anybody for anything. I think that's pretty clear. And I just watched the 60-minute sports piece on Jurgen Klinsmann, which was okay. I mean, it was fine. It was whatever. They went to Germany and, they talked to him about his approach. It was all about Klinsmann. And he talked about competition and specifically not wanting anybody to feel like their position is safe, that their spot is secure. So he has at least given lip service to the idea that nobody's position is safe based on what they did before. That should include Brad Evans. So if he's taking Brad Evans, because he legitimately believes Brad Evans is the best option or one of the top 2 options at that position in the pool. And I don't think he is on pure talent and understanding of the position, but he might be within the setup based on the time he's put in and what Klinsmann's asking him to do. I don't want Brad Evans to start against Ghana. I don't. But I can kind of get around the idea that Evans does what Klinsmann asks, and maybe that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I suppose he likes his role players or what have you. Anyways, thanks for taking my call, Jason.
All right, there goes Vince from Toronto. 347-756-6276 is the phone number if you want to get in. We haven't really had a chance to talk to anybody about this MLS TV deal that is going to be announced a couple of hours in New York City. And I'm wondering, MLS fans out there, are you excited about this? Does this represent a big step forward for MLS in terms of money coming in, the commitment, the time slots, Friday night, Sunday night? Is that a good thing? Do you see that as a positive development, or are you just concerned about the loss of MLS Live? MLS Live goes away. That certainly changes how you watch your soccer if you're one of those people. And again, details to come out, but it's possible there will be a subscription service to ESPN3. And yes, ESPN3, Watch ESPN, is tied to your ISP. So if you have an ISP who is on board with that, then you can get access regardless of whether or not you have the television service. Speak of the devil, John Tannewell, the goalkeeper, is on the line. John,
the devil arises.
You couldn't stay away. It's just too big of a day for you, huh?
There's a few things going on today, aren't there?
Yes, there are. What's on your mind this
I'm more interested in what's on yours so that I can answer some of the questions that you have.
Okay, absolutely. Go ahead. Throw it out there.
You were asking about whether NBC ever had any U.S. men's national team World Cup qualifiers. No, they didn't.
No, I didn't think so.
That's a big part of this deal.
Yes.
That's where and look, I don't know what the split of money is going to be between MLS and U.S. soccer, but there's certainly a lot of value to Fox in getting World Cup qualifiers out of this deal.
Yes.
What else do you want to know?
Well, okay. This is, you call me and then I ask you questions. That's how this works.
Well, you've got all these questions that you're spouting off, and I'm trying to listen to the show and write at the same time.
I guess if we're talking about what the takeaways are when the news comes out, what the fans care about, John, it's, I suppose the amount of money is the first thing that jumps off the page, right? And Sports Business Journal has reported a $90 million total between the 3 networks, and
which is more than NBC is paying the Premier League.
Yes, it is, and I've seen the breakout as 75 between ESPN and Fox and 15 for Univision, which seems, I suppose, seems about right. I do like the report that there is going to be an SAP option for that Friday night game that Univision is going to have, and I'm glad that we're going to have Friday night soccer back. I think that's a place that MLS should exist.
I think that the SAP option on Unimas is a huge deal because I've had a lot of people tell me that they don't want to watch games on there because they don't speak Spanish, which I personally am a little sick of because I don't speak Spanish either and I don't care.
No, I watch games in Spanish all the time. I have no problem with that.
A couple of things I find interesting. The splitting of the playoffs, putting the MLS Cup on Fox Sports 1, which is part of the deal. Having all of the games be in primetime I find rather interesting because it seems on paper, this is one of the questions that I have. I wish I was going to the press conference today. I'm not. This is one of the questions that I have is, does this rule out Bundesliga MLS doubleheaders when Fox gets the Bundesliga in 2015? Because it seems to.
Those games would happen entirely too early for that to be a doubleheader with an MLS game on a Sunday night.
Right.
Right. And you mentioned the MLS Cup. MLS Cup would alternate between the two networks. That's a massive change because while we had ABC broadcasting MLS Cup in the early days, the halcyon days, you want to look at it that way, over the air, it's been ESPN, and it's been the purview of ESPN, and this will make a change. And I guess, again, now we get to the part where, okay, it's confirmed, it's Fox. Should people be concerned, John, or should we be giving them the benefit of the doubt to figure it out? Because they've got the Champions League, now they've got MLS, you just mentioned Bundesliga, and they're going to be doing national team games. They've got to step it up, and they're going to have the World Cup in 2018, et cetera, 2015 next year for the Women's World Cup. So they've got to step up their game right now.
They do. I think they know it. One of the things I'm hoping to do this afternoon in the coming days is to talk to some of the people at both Fox and MLS who are going to be setting the tone on this stuff and making the decisions of how many games Gus Johnson broadcasts and how many cameras they have in stadiums and things like that. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to give them some benefit of the doubt in part because they are putting so much money on the table that I think they've earned some.
Okay. And that's the other thing here. That's sort of the equation that MLS fans have to go through. They have to think to themselves, am I upset enough about perhaps the loss of MLS Live, depending on what that means for ESPN3, and the move to Fox from NBC, which did a fantastic job of presenting the games? Is that more important to me than the amount of money that is being brought to the table, which could be a fundamental change, could represent a fundamental change in the way MLS is able to operate in the near future? If anybody's worried about Don Garber's statement about being one of the best leagues in the world by 2022, this is how they're going to get there. They have to do things like this.
Well, and they're playing on the turf of the TV networks now in a way that they've never done before. And that matters because you're not going to get the big money out of them unless you do that. Mm-hmm. And if that means that they get to tell you a little more what to do. Now, what I find fascinating is that there are not going to be any national broadcasts on Saturdays.
That is interesting.
Which is the day of the week that the clubs have always said, we sell the most tickets and this, that, and the other thing. And I don't know what the ESPN3 deal is going to end up looking like. I've had a lot of people this morning tell me a lot of different things. And obviously there was this report in the Sports Business Journal that they may yet have a paid subscription package for the MLS content in some form. They also have to work out how it's going to work in Canada because ESPN3 is geo-blocked in Canada.
Yes, and and apparently TSN is not that into streaming.
I don't believe that.
You don't believe that they aren't?
I don't believe that they aren't that into streaming. I think they have the infrastructure to do it. They haven't used it yet.
Well, I think that's what my Canadian listeners have said to me and my followers on Twitter. It's not that they're not capable of it. It's that they haven't done it yet. And they haven't really stepped up yet. And there's reason for Canadian fans to worry. So I suppose that at this point, if you're concerned about your ESPN3 access, if you're a Canadian and you're concerned about streaming at all, if you're worried about the quality of the Fox product, you can get your pitchforks ready, but just don't go storming anything yet. Just chill for a couple of minutes.
Hours. 2 hours, exactly.
Yeah, chill for a couple of hours at least to get this round of details, which should be way more comprehensive than what we've seen in these early reports, which we don't have any reason to think are inaccurate. But they're not going to be the full story. And again, I suppose that for us and for people who are interested in the business of MLS at all, and pretty much everybody who's got an interest in MLS is somehow interested in the business of MLS, the next question is, what does this mean for CBA negotiations?
I'm very happy if I'm the players union.
I would think that this is a big thing for them to point to, but again,
I think they have. I think. Look, I don't know what this. A lot of that will come down to what the split of money between MLS and U.S. soccer is.
Yes, right.
I have a hunch that the players union could very easily go into that room and say double the cap as a starting point, at least as a bare minimum, double the cap to $6 million.
Yes,
because there's enough money on the table to do that. And look, as I've said many times before, ESPN and Fox, David Nathanson, who's the head of Fox Sports, and John Skipper, who's the president of ESPN and is a huge soccer fan, are saying, we believe in MLS. Here's the money. Go sign the players.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put the money in your pocket. Go sign the players.
Yeah, and I think that that's the thing that people have to realize, that this is the networks, and you don't have to love the corporate influence on your sports if you don't want to, but if you want the league to get better, if you want to see better players here, if you want to see teams spend more than $1 million a year on academies, then there's going to have to be an influx of cash. And this is the network saying, we believe in the product, we can see a bright future, and MLS has done a great job of laying the groundwork to give them reason to believe that, John.
And you as a fan don't get to have a boutique experience.
Right.
You don't get to have it be your little special thing anymore. You're getting treated like all the other major sports now, which is what you've always wanted.
Yeah. Well,
so don't look your $720 million gift horse in the mouth.
Not everybody has always wanted that. There are a couple of holdouts on that front, but I think for the most part, everybody wants to see the league grow and succeed. And just to give some context to this, the last TV deal, NBC and ESPN, $18 million average between the two of them. This is from Sports Business Daily. So the ABC deal is from 2007 to 2014. So I may have the average is $8 million. That may have changed at some point during that 7-year span, the amount of money. But NBC was a $10 million a year deal. So they have just made 5 times. Is that the right amount? 5 times more than they were making previously?
I wouldn't go to 5.
Okay.
I mean, they made probably 5 times more in English.
Right.
But they're going from $27 million total between the 3 networks and their last round of deals to $90 million now.
Right.
So I'm calling it a tripling because I think the Univision investment is a big deal.
Triple with a little change thrown on top, a couple extra mil thrown on. Just that alone, and again, the disconnect here is that MLS television ratings have been poor to disastrous. Is there any other way to say that? Have they been? I mean, in English, certainly, and I don't.
That's what I was going to say. If there's one other way to say it, it's that in Spanish they've been better than people want to give them credit for, and that's part of why Univision is throwing so much money at this, because they really do believe in it, and I think we're going to find out now. They have some really big ideas for Major League Soccer, and it tells you something significant, that not only are they getting these exclusive broadcasts, which, if they're really exclusive, they're now going to have to fully produce and staff with cameramen and stuff like that for the first time ever. Because they've usually, almost every Unimas game is locally broadcast in English.
Mm-hmm.
And they take the feed of the local broadcast and production crew. It's theirs now. And so they're going for the biggest audience they can get by doing this SAP audio, which is a huge deal.
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited for the possibility. I mean, I may still watch in Spanish because I'm that guy, but I don't speak Spanish enough to follow. But I may still do it. You notice? I mean, it's the guys calling the game remote. Are we going to see Univision make the step and send their guys out to all these games now? Is that going to happen?
That's a question that I have not been able to ask yet. We'll find out.
Okay. Well, I think that would be a nice indication of the commitment, and certainly they're making a monetary commitment that would dictate they up their production standards. And I would love to see, every broadcaster actually go to, but that's not going to happen locally with local broadcast.
They're gonna. Yes, I would like to see all the local broadcasts do this too. But I will say this about the Unimas stuff: Univision doesn't go to every single FIFA game and every Mexican League game and all that. They go to a lot, and hopefully they'll go to more MLS games now.
Right. Well,
even just the fact that they have to produce it is a big deal. And I want to throw in one more thing about the Univision deal that will be a little bit underrated. They're making a commitment to show at least 4 U.S. women's national team games a year.
Okay.
Which they've never done before.
That's interesting.
And that will bring women's soccer to a considerable new audience. I'll be very interested to see what the reaction is.
And let's like make it clear here. This is U.S. soccer. This is all games, so the women's games are included in the package.
Yes, and they commit to show at least 4 a year.
Okay, so you have U.S. women's soccer on Univision or Unimos or wherever they decide to put that.
Correct.
One more thing before I let you go, John. And I know you called me. Still love this. Fox's portion of the deal and the decision, and the not only the locked in time slot, and I guess we could talk about those a little bit more specifically, but the putting the games on Fox Sports 1. Now, the report I see here says minimum of 34 regular season games on an exclusive basis on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern, primarily on Fox Sports 1. Now, that primarily word is a little scary.
Yep.
How many games are we going to get on Fox? I mean, I know you don't know for certain.
I don't know.
Should we be afraid?
I have not seen anything which tells me that it has been absolutely set in stone yet. And I think part of that is because going for 8 years now, who knows what deals they're going to have. And you would think that at some point in the next 8 years, they will fix Fox Sports 2's distribution problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so I suppose. But Fox has had a tradition of difficult negotiations with providers. I mean, this is not new that they might have some problems getting their networks onto cable carriers and satellite carriers. I'm looking at this again. I'm sorry, I'm keeping you here. If you have to go, let me know.
Fine.
The digital rights thing and ESPN3 being the platform everybody's going to look to sort of replace MLS Live. Fox also has digital rights. How is that?
To its games.
Just to its games.
Yes.
Okay, so
the networks get digital rights to their respective games.
Okay, I see.
And ESPN3 takes over the distribution of all games not nationally televised.
Not nationally televised. So we're going to.
But
okay.
the only big question that I have left about that part of it is whether ESPN and Fox get rights to their games on their Spanish channels.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying.
I don't know if they do or not.
We'll find that out. The last thing about the time slots, and you and I have been banging this drum, and plenty of people have been saying you need consistent time slots. When's the game this weekend on national television? I have no idea because they move around all the time. The loss of a Saturday nationally televised game is interesting. But the decision to go with a doubleheader on Sunday, I would love to hear the thinking behind that.
I don't think it's the worst idea because Sunday is the most watched day of the week for television.
Mm-hmm. But
what it does, for better or worse, is establish Major League Soccer as the official competition to the National Football League.
Yes, it does. And we're going to have plenty of that discussion when that portion of the year rolls around. Why is MLS going up against the NFL? But the reality of it is that MLS is going to be going up against something during football season, regardless of where it puts its games,
and regardless of what its schedule is, too. By the way,
right. It's a very interesting day. It's even more potentially a bigger windfall financially for MLS than we might have even thought before. We can continue to sort of break this down over the coming days. After we get the details today, perhaps we'll ask Jonathan to come back and talk about them. John, thanks for the phone call, man. Appreciate it.
At any time, and people are welcome to keep asking me questions.
There you go. The Goalkeeper on Twitter. Go follow John. Ask him many, many questions. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, there he goes. So we've got. Let me just get there. I didn't realize he was on my video behind me. We've got about 15 minutes left in this program. We can continue to talk about these MLS TV details if you want to. We could talk about La Liga, which is now steaming towards a dramatic end of the season. After Real Madrid falls out of the title race, you got Atletico Madrid and Barcelona set to play on the final weekend of the season for the title. You can't ask for anything better than that dramatically. It's almost a playoff. It's almost a championship final kind of situation there. Real Madrid losing 2-0 to Celta Vigo. You had Atletico Madrid drawing with Malaga, which sets this up here. And I'm trying to find. Let me pull up the standings one more time, just because I think I had them up and left them and lost them here. Barcelona 3 points back of Atletico Madrid with 1 game to play, and this is exactly what we might have wanted for the Premier League that we didn't get. You're never going to have You're never going to have a head-to-head for the title on the last day of the season. Just never going to happen. And then here it is. Now, the interesting thing about this is for anybody who looks at this table and scratches their head a little bit, the goal differential, Atletico Madrid's goal differential, much better. I'm sorry, no, not much better. Barcelona's is better. But it's not goal differential that determines this, if I have this right. Even though Barcelona's is better and they would win on that tiebreaker if it was, I think head-to-head is the tiebreaker in La Liga, which obviously makes for even more potential drama at the end of the season. All right. What time is the U.S. roster dropping? Because I need to be ready for that. I know it's 1 o'clock for the TV deal. When is the U.S. soccer roster coming out? When is Jurgen Klinsmann going to shock us all with some surprise? And I guess that's my question here. Who's going to be the surprise inclusion to the U.S. national team 30-man roster, not 23, because Jurgen's going to make us wait for that. Who's going to be the surprise inclusion in the 30-man roster that just blows everybody away? Anybody? Anybody have a guess? Shoot me a guess. At Soccer Morning on Twitter, 347-756-6276. We could sort of think about what the final 23-man roster will be, but I think there may be a shock in the 30. I mean, I kind of hope for one. If you're not going to throw a couple of surprises at me here, well, what's the fun of this? What's the fun of today? Because I know 16, 17 of these guys at least. If we went through the rosters that we expect to see, the roster that we expect to see when Klinsmann makes his final determination, final rosters are due June 2nd. So you have 3 weeks to figure this out. Obviously, Klinsmann also doing this thing with the open competition in camp, et cetera, et cetera. MLS players leaving for camp. MLS players who are on the national team, Kyle Beckerman, Michael Bradley. Give me the other names here because I will blank. I will have a mental block on Clint Dempsey, obviously, Matt Beasler, Graham Zusi, all of them. Well, Matt Beasler and Graham Zusi not leaving their team yet. They have one more game to play. They play Wednesday. So Sporting gets to squeeze an extra game out of their internationals, their U.S. internationals, that the other teams don't. 785, you're on the air.
Hey, what's up, Jason? This is Brian from Topeka.
You dropped out just when you said your name. What's your name?
Brandon.
Brandon. What's up, Brandon?
What do you think of Juan Aguidelo's work permit getting cut again from?
Yeah. If you didn't hear, Stoke went through the process of again of trying to get a work permit in England for Juan Aguilera. They were denied a second time. That means, based on reports, Agudelo and Stoke have terminated his contract by mutual agreement, and he is now a free agent. And I've seen plenty of reports that he has a lot of interest in Holland. I hope he ends up in Holland. I hope he stays there. I think that's a good place for him to continue to develop. He's still young. Is he even 21 yet? Is Juan Agudelo even 21 yet? Still young enough to go to a place like Holland. Yeah, he's 21. And learn and score a bunch of goals and gain a bunch of confidence. As long as he doesn't end up at Sunderland after this, I'll be okay. I think it's disappointing for him, surely. But did you want to see him at Stoke? Because I didn't.
I probably think that the Dutch league is probably a better career choice anyway.
Yeah, I think
probably a better road for him.
I think this worked out well. Maybe not for his pocketbook, or for his checkbook, but I think this worked out well in the end for Juan Agudelo to meet the expectations that he built up when he was 18. I mean, he's still young enough that we can't say he's done, and he's not. I don't think he's going to make this World Cup roster. He may be in the 30. Would you be surprised if he's in the 30-man roster?
I'd be a little surprised with other striker options, and you got Josie, Johansson, and I don't know who'd be taking as third.
Yeah, I mean it's a Wondolowski, is it Terrence Boyd, is it Juan Agudelo? I could honestly make solid cases for all three of those guys. I really could, and I'm not sure that there's one that has a fundamental advantage over any of the others because with Agudelo you have youth and maybe some inexperience and certainly the weird path his career has taken over the last couple of years and sort of dropping off the radar. But he is dynamic and he can change a game. And wouldn't you love to have Juan Agudelo on your bench in the 80th minute if you're down a goal and you need something? With Chris Wondolowski, you know he's going to pop up in those perfect positions to make something happen. to try to score a goal. Will he finish them? That's a good question. I don't know. He scored some goals for the national team. You could argue about the quality of the opposition. Terrence Boyd is tearing it up in Austria right now. Tearing it up. And he's big and strong, and he's the closest thing you have to somebody who can replicate what Josie Altidore can do in this lineup. But he's never scored for the national team. He's still something of an inexperienced player. So all three of them have their pluses and minuses, and I think it's just a matter of personal preference. Do you like the flashy guy, Juan Agudelo? Do you like the kind of sort of fox in the box, Chris Wondolowski poacher type? Or do you like the big, strong center forward, Terrence Boyd? Which one do you like?
I like Wando.
You like Wando?
Getting in the right places.
Right. Wando, who's probably the worst athlete of the three, but maybe the best pure goal scorer.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Brandon, anything else, man?
No, thank you.
I appreciate the phone call. 347-756-6276 is the phone number. Jump on in. Add to the conversation. Let's talk national team roster, which I'm being told is coming down at 3 o'clock Eastern time. 352, you're on the air.
Hey, this is Scott from Florida.
Hey, Scott, what's going on, man?
Hey, I was just wondering, what's the chain of command when it comes to the coaching of the USA? Like, God forbid, what if Jurgen's copper goes down?
Oh, my God. What are you doing? Scott, what are you doing?
I'm just wondering, who would take over? Who's, the second in command? Is it Tab Ramos now? Or
yes,
who?
It is Tab Ramos now.
Okay. So no longer Martin.
Wait. You're really asking about the U.S. national team head coach line of succession. That's what you're asking about?
I'm scared. Because I know he's choosing the roster today, so I slept in my jersey last night. I'm a suspicious guy.
Man, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, after Ramos, I don't know where it goes. There's obviously a group of assistants there. You obviously have a bunch of guys in the setup. So it's sort of like it goes from president, vice president to Speaker of the House to I don't know who else is on that list. After Speaker of the House, it's somebody I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
Scott, chill out, man. All right. Well, while I got you on the line, give me your surprise, your choice for surprise inclusion. You can go completely off book here. If you don't think they're going to be called in, that's fine. But give me a guy you think would be a massive surprise who might have a tiny bit of a chance to get in this team.
Tiny bit. I would love to see, although he hasn't played very much lately, Herculez Gomez. But I think he's played himself out of it.
I think it's been a difficult run for Herc recently. He's not first choice at Tijuana, and he's certainly had some injury issues that have dictated his playing time has been limited. So yeah, I don't think Herc's in this team or even in the 30-man.
Yeah,
but he was an amazing servant for U.S. Soccer. It would be nice to see him get one more chance, but at this point, very unlikely. Anybody else? One more. Give me one more name.
One more. Has Chris Clute been playing, or is he still injured?
I think he may have played this weekend and maybe played the last couple of weeks, but he has been injured, and he has. There's been no real indication. I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit of a sign, but there's been no definite indication that Klinsmann is likely to call him up. But I like that name. That would be a surprise. That's one of those guys you go, well, he should get a shot at some point. Why not now? But if Klinsmann included him, you would be surprised based on his pattern, based on his history. That's a nice one.
Yeah.
Thanks. All right. Got anything else, Scott?
No. I was a little surprised by how poorly DeAndre Yedlin played this last weekend. I hope that, I wonder if that'll affect his stock. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Clute did not play this weekend. I apologize for that. Oh, no, he came in the 64th minute. So he's working his way back into that team. He did not start. So there you go. Appreciate the phone call, Scott. Thanks a lot, man.
Yep.
All right, there goes. There goes Scott in Florida, 347-756-6276. La Liga, Premier League ending. You want to throw some praise in the direction of NBC Sports because that's what I saw. The season ended. Manchester City crowned themselves champion by winning their final game. And Twitter blew up with people going, NBC Sports did an amazing job. And they did. Absolutely. Did a fantastic job with the Premier League this season. And they're going to be doing it again next year. They've got this contract. They seem committed to this. Slightly disappointed that they're not going to be doing MLS anymore because of the standard of the broadcast. But at the same time, if they weren't willing to step up with the money that MLS was going to get from other sources, then it's hard. It's hard to say, oh, I really want that NBC broadcast, but if it was half as much money, how can MLS say no to what Fox is offering? And I don't know what ESPN's bringing to the table, But everything that you hear coming out of Connecticut from ESPN's headquarters is that they are committed to soccer and they are committed to MLS. Yes, John Skipper may be conditioned to believe that the Brits are the best soccer commentators in the world. Yes, he is. But that doesn't mean they're not committed to American soccer. I give them full credit for that. They put Alexi Lawless on your television. They put Taylor Twellman on your television. Can't argue with that, can you? That's quality right there. But NBC Sports, and the more let's look at this in a positive way. The more networks that are invested in soccer on a deep level, meaning they are spending significant money. That's relative, of course, but they are spending significant money to broadcast soccer in the United States. The more major networks we have, the better. And I'm not trying to slight BN Sport. If I could get BN Sport in HD, I would probably watch the damn thing all the time. But I don't have it in HD. So I need someone to get Comcast on that. And yes, I have Comcast, and I'm very sad about it. But if BN Sport was in HD, that'd be great. But Fox, big money, big name. Obviously, and I didn't ask. We haven't seen any of this yet. But the possibility of anything from MLS being on over-the-air Fox, that'd be cool. We could see if we could see that. That'd be nice. Obviously, ESPN brings their prestige, their money, their talent to the table. They have the clout. ESPN is the reason that your cable bill is as much as it is, by the way. And yeah, it sucks that ESPN has all this pull and they charge 25 times as much for their carriage as any other network. But they have there's a reason. Live sports sell. This is why MLS was in a very unique position right now. You look at those ratings and you go, really? They got a point whatever, and how do they justify, how does any network justify paying $90 million in total, split across 3, but still, how do they justify spending that much money on a product that doesn't deliver the ratings? That's because live sports are at a premium right now because of the DVR culture. People still aren't DVRing games. They're still watching live. It is still a communal experience. Twitter has just become the pub or the bar if you're not one of the people who go out to the pub or the bar. So they are in a position to grab more money based on the unique nature of this television scene right now. The fact that soccer is on the rise in general. There's clearly an indication that soccer is becoming more and more popular. And yeah, MLS pales in comparison to some of the other soccer properties out there. But U.S. Soccer was involved. And the national team still drives ratings. Rick taking a shot. This is Rick's shot, not mine. If BN Sports had any leagues that weren't oil-soaked, I'd watch it all the time, too. Wow, that's harsh. La Liga's pretty oil-soaked, I guess, huh? Nice. Nice one, Rick. All right, last couple of minutes of a Monday edition. Oh, you want to squeeze? Let's squeeze in one more phone call. 404, you're on the air.
What's up, Jason? This is Daniel.
Hey, Daniel, what's on? What's going on? Go ahead.
I'm at work right now. My bad, dude. Big surprise, Steve Cherundolo.
He retired, Daniel. He's done.
Big surprise. It's still a big surprise. Steve Cherundolo.
That would be the surprise of all surprises. I like that you're going out that far on the limb, Daniel, but that'd be amazing. Yeah. All right. You win the biggest surprise award because that one would shock me. I appreciate the call, man. You got anything else?
Tell Bruce Arena to get rid of Leonardo, man. He's not doing shit for LA.
Okay. Appreciate that, Daniel. There goes Daniel. All right. Leonardo out. All right, last minute of the show. Soccermorning.com is where you can go to learn how to support the program. You want to be DJ for a day, you want to sit in, or just give a little bit to help us keep going. Got the World Cup coming up. MLS is obviously getting more and more exciting every weekend. We're covering the rest of the world. In fact, with the leagues, European leagues shutting down, we'll obviously be shifting our focus not just to the World Cup, but to some other leagues that are going on through the summer. MLS will be top of that list, but they're not the only ones. Make sure you go to soccermorning.com to find out how you can help support the show, because without you guys, we can't do this. We're working on a bunch of stuff behind the scenes, but as of right now, this is really, really important that you guys go and help out the show, support the program. Thank you to producer Trevor, who does excellent work from behind the scenes. I don't thank him enough on this program. Thank you to Charlie Boehm and Luke Moore, and we'll see you tomorrow. We'll have MLS TV details. We'll have a U.S. roster, and should be a good one. Should be excellent. All right, let's get out of here. Let me hit the music. Before I don't know, babble my way into scaring all of you people off. Later.
The days on the boulevard I landed. We used to kick routines and the presence was fitting. It was I, the abstract, and me, the 5-footer. I kicks the mad style.